Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar session. If you were at yesterday's Beyond the Basics, thanks for coming to this one. This is really our number 2 in the installment of the 3, although we have many more. A lot of you also went to the bank feeds one with Valerie, which just was excellent yesterday. So I'll make sure you know where you can go to register for these events as well. But it's Woody Adams again. Today is the accountant best practice, but it's in the client file. So we're not in QBOA. We're not doing any work stuff or anything like that. We are just in a client file going through some different stuff there that I'll show you, some different tools that you'll want to know about, etc. Now, administratively, like usual, if you need to ask a question, use the questions box, and I try to answer them at the next segue. I don't wait to the end or anything. So I'll keep an eye on that. Right. I also uploaded the PowerPoint deck, though I do not follow it. That's just so that you can go through and use it later on. There's a lot of slides on stuff that I might not get to or will get to that just go into a deeper dive. So you can download the deck. It's like 30 to 40 slides, and that's in the handout section. If you cannot get it, though, for some reason, go to woody_adams@intuit.com, and I'll send it to you. We also have this QBOBestPractices.com site because Henry just asked a question. So let me go there. There's me, right? So you'll see that in there too. And you can find out more about what Stacy Kildall and Richard Rope and I do at RadioFreeQB.com. We still do the QBO show a couple times a month. There's a matrix in there too. It's a Google spreadsheet you can view. It compares different feature sets for our QuickBooks ecosystem. A bunch of other resource links, right? And we'll go there. But before I do that, let me bring up this. Henry's asked about recordings. So when you go to QBOBestPractices.com, it actually lands you on the webinar page, right? So you'll see, the ABP, the bank feed reconciliation one. If you're already here and you've been to the account best practice, you don't need this one. This QuickBooks Online Basics for Accountants is that's like the first step, a lot of people that come here don't even have QuickBooks Online Accountant yet, right? So it's a great one though. It's very popular, but you're probably beyond that. Beyond the Basics is where we did yesterday. We go through projects and service-based tracking and stuff like that, through all the key settings, that we don't cover in this one or the first one. And then here's today's, right? And then there's also this conversion one we took over from the implementation team, so converting from desktop to QBO. So that's what we got going on right now. But if you click on videos for Henry's question, what about recordings? Here's where the recordings would be, right? As well as, a lot of other videos across a range of topics, particularly third-party apps. Our last one is tomorrow. It's on Vend. It's a point-of-sale system. But we've done a lot over the years with third-party app partnerships and stuff, the key ones and stuff. So QBOBestPractices.com, definitely check that out. So those are all the recordings there on that video page. Let me go back here. Yeah, so we got this, and you can download the deck too. A lot of other resources, our product video site, which I was just on. If you don't have time to train your clients, there's some good free training for your clients as well. Put on by either real world training or just by, QuickBooks YouTube page, stuff like that. And check out From the Future, just a lot of testimonials of firms doing what you're doing. They're kind of slowly moving from desktop to QBO platform. Now, a good segue to this. The main tenets of QBO for me, no file transfer, right? Collaboration not only with the team, but with your client, clearly. It's a single ledger in the cloud. You're just accessing their books. Automating data entry, which we will look at today a little bit. It's around bank rules and recurring transactions. We went over some of that yesterday. And then mobility, which I did yesterday. I won't be going in today, but, the phone app, iPad, tablets. So that ability as well. Now, I know with the phone app, it doesn't have all the feature sets of just, when you're in the browser, but still we're adding more and more to it. So, and then, so when you change the platform, you're probably supporting both. A lot of firms are supporting both, desktop, QBO. Not every client has good high-speed internet access, right? That's really required. I wouldn't even say it's a feature set restriction anymore because there's third-party apps. So it's really for me like, do you have good high-speed internet access, which would keep someone back from QBO. But from an accounting firm perspective, not having to maintain a bunch of desktop installations on a server or your staff's computers, right? dealing with accountant's copy and things like that, right? So over to the state where you can automate data collection, auto-categorize through bank rules and stuff. The bank feeds are advantageous. And then, just there's a lot of third parties that help you keep proactive. And the data for me, this is what, when I was interviewing a bunch of accountants that also do tax, and why they prefer QBO is because they're in the file more than they would be the desktop clients. Therefore, they've already cleaned it up. So by the time they get to December or October 15th or whatever it is, the data's less to clean up. They don't even put a password on the close date or a close date password in there because they were probably the last persons in, or they're in there a couple weeks ago. So if you're actually touching the file more often, the chances are it's in a good shape. Therefore, less cleanup time, and the reports, particularly for this year to the end of last month, have more of an opportunity to be current versus desktop. Not to mention the mobile piece where I can do transactions on the phone, right? So it's just, I found that to be an interesting reason why. Now, our lineup, I'm not including self-employed, and we have a QuickBooks Self-Employed app, of course, or it's online. I think there is a way to upgrade to it now using support. I think they can upgrade self-employed to like Essentials or Plus or something. I've not done that yet myself, but that's really just for your Schedule C clients, personal versus business. That's really it. It's not heavy on transactions or reporting. But it's great for like, a subcontractor, gig economy, something like that. But for QBO, actual double entry accounting, so something being debited, something being credited, and it balances, that's going to be simple starting up, right? So we have 4 levels of QuickBooks Online. I'm always a proponent of Plus because of two-sided items and profitability by customer and pass-through time, not just time, which Essentials does, but also material expense. And, I like that it's up to 5 users, and it's relatively affordable. And so for me, Plus is most akin to Pro, and that's what I'm used to, although I was using like Accountant Edition all these years in Enterprise, but still, our clients are on Pro. Plus is most akin to it. So the third option is always the one I'm in or using or whatever. I do have some on Essentials. I do have some on Advanced now, but few Advanced, right? So, and I think our Accountant University is doing a bi-weekly advanced webinars. You can go learn about QuickBooks Online Advanced, right? So, but we'll go over the usage limits. I think that's included today and stuff like that when we get into some of the settings. But Plus is where I'm at. Now, you can do 1099s in all of these. I know sometimes the website will say you have to be in Plus for 1099s, but that's not true. Simple Start can even process 1099s. Okay? So, and then here's our agenda today. We're going to go, we're in the client file, so what are the main things there you want to know about? The new overview tab, we'll look at report tools, why that matters. A couple of the accountant tools under the accountant toolbox or the lunchbox there. User roles update, just in case you don't know, and the usage limits, want to make sure we're aligned there. Then we'll go through reporting, and you're doing more reporting and bank reconciliation than I am, but I just want to make sure we're aligned on, what are the key things about reporting, and then the reconcile, and how do you merge accounts, the detail type phenomena. And then we'll look at more automation of data entry, bank rules, and recurring transactions. And I'll probably mention opening balance equity. It's like the same account in desktop that you don't want to have a balance in, right? And how does it lead to that? Thematically, it's similar to what you would know about OBE and desktop, but still, it's important to know. Now, the PowerPoint deck from here, which I suggest you download, is it just has all these client mistakes, low-hanging fruit of client mistakes, and all these pictures. You just go through, and I think it's very helpful to peruse later on. None of this stuff you can't share externally. It's totally fine, right? So this is what we're going to cover today in this client file. But before, I wanted to ask a question. Just we'll do like one poll, maybe 2 quick ones, and that's it. I just want to know, how many clients do you have? So there should be a poll option you're seeing. I don't share this with marketing. This is just for me. Less than 5 to 20, or 20 plus. And interestingly, because I've been doing the account best practices for a while now, and this in the client file one, it's got to be 2 years now going on this one, or close to it. And of course, the percentages have changed for these 3 answers, right? It used to be where I'd have 50% less than 5 and 50% 5 to 20, or maybe just, a little less than that. And then, see, Ann has 85. So now I have over 50% are 20 plus. So that's definitely shifted from me doing this a year ago. And it's just interesting to see. You know, right now we're at dead even 50% 5 to 20, 50% 20 plus. So hardly anybody in the less than 5. But don't worry, if you hear less than 5, this will still be helpful today, right? It's absolutely be helpful today. And I'll show with, you know, I'm going to have multiple windows open, you know, so I'll make sure I point that out. Excuse me. So I'm going to close that poll, and then just helpful for me when we're in settings, although we did most of this yesterday in the Beyond the Basics, and the recordings are there, but one more poll. What best describes your client base? So is it just product-based businesses, service/project, or both? And typically it's mostly both. Hardly is anybody just like focused on a client selling products. It's usually service, or, you know, 80% of you at least will be both. And the answers I'm getting, it's about that. 93% both, 7% service. And that hasn't really shifted over the years either. So that's why I don't usually heavily go into inventory much in these webinars, because it's such a niche. It's good to know that QBO Plus and Advanced supports inventory, in case you didn't know. You were here today, you didn't know. It's FIFO. It's first in, first out. But there's no unit of measure. It's more like Pro in that there's no build assemblies, you know. But it's a FIFO valuation. And when you get that niche client that's heavy on inventory, ask your account manager, like, third-party apps. You know, so there's some great third-party apps for inventory tracking. But, you know, it just doesn't come up much. But I would say unit of measure is the main thing lacking for me, and it's why it's most akin to Pro, although Pro has unit of measure, but just single, not the multiple units of measure. Pro has the single units of measure. Pro also doesn't have a sales order workflow, right? So neither would QBO Plus. So those are the kind of the gaps there, and why I still think Plus is most akin to Pro, you know? Because we're used to Premier, right? We're using Accountant Edition. Premier and that has sales orders. It has build assemblies. It has multiple units of measure, right? So you're like, well, what are you really comparing QBO to? So I'm always comparing it to Pro, whereas we might compare it to QuickBooks Accountant Edition, but remember, that's not Pro. That's Premier. Okay, so I'm going to close that poll. Thanks for taking. That's it. We're going to do so. When you land in QBO client file from QBOA, right, you have accountant on the left, and hope you guys are seeing my screen. You hear me okay? Let me know. Yesterday I didn't have my volume on for some reason. Today I should, right? You would have told me already, though. But you come to the dashboard, right? It's where we all land. Even your clients land here. Of course, they don't have the briefcase, and I'm going to be going over some of these tools, specifically Batch or Classify, which is still like one of the best accountant tools even in QuickBooks Accountant Edition. When you're working on your Pro Premier client files, you use this tool. Similar. Prep for taxes and void deleted transactions. I'll also look at report tools. The rest you can click through when you want. I mean, there's other ways to get there. It's just kind of like your accountant menu drop down, right? I'm going to go through 4 of these things. And then, of course, you're going in and out of client files, right? Your client doesn't have those things, but everything else is pretty similar. Where I hope you land eventually is above here is this overview. Now, it's changed. There's a bookkeeping review and a business performance. You'll see it. Your clients won't see overview yet. Business performance is fairly new. It is in QBO Advanced. But when I click on business performance, I'll have some key metrics, which is pretty sweet. When you're in a client file, this is what I can see. Business performance, accrual basis. So you got like these are all new charts and graphs, like in the last 2 to 3 weeks that we've added into, you know, QuickBooks Online. But you'll see it, right? Net profit, expenses, gross profit. It's a way so you can, you know, do some advisory services with your client. And there's a little bit of a drop down, and then, you know, compare to previous year, previous period, maybe something like that. I guess it's already previous year, previous period. It'll reflect that and change it. Now, just to make sure, if you guys got a second, hold on here. I'm going to go into the same file as a client just to make sure they don't see it. It should just be for us, meaning for you all. For accountants or bookkeepers, EAs, anybody, you know, working with QBO clients, you're going into the client file from QuickBooks Online Accountant, right? So you're up here, right? I mean, I have a bunch of QBOAs. You probably only have one. But we always want to be going in through this, because I'm going to show you some tools today, particularly undoing a reconcile, batch or classify, and this overview tab. Your clients don't have access to those features. So it's important you're always going in through QBOA. We don't want to go into this QuickBooks company section. If your client invites you as a company admin, then tell them to delete you and invite you as an accountant user and manage users, because you'll be missing out on a lot of stuff that you want to help you quickly get through the file to where you need to go. But I'm going to go in as a client now. Yeah, see? Now, maybe we'll be adding that on the dashboard, but they don't have that thing. So it's still something you could work with your clients and sit through. I think it's in advanced as well, but this business performance is pretty sweet, because neither has anybody here today on this webinar or myself seen like business performance and metrics and trends and graphs and charts and QBO, right? So this is like literally later today or tomorrow, go into QBOA, go into a client, go to overview or mouse over it and choose business performance. I'm actually going to, while I can, take a quick screenshot for the team I'm on. They got to see this stuff. It's great. So only for you, your view, but bookkeeping review is the other one, right? So this is where we're going to surface up issues and things like that. So there's 4 metrics right now, I think, or sections. Company setup, which is just, is payroll on this file? What's the subscription level? Not that you can't see this. You can see this from QBOA, when you hover over the QB icon to the left of your client name in the client list QBOA, it'll tell you what level of QBO it is. You know what I mean? Do they have payroll? Do they have sales tax? Also, we don't see apps when we're in the client file, right? Let's go back as my client was. Let me make it smaller, right? So I'm in as the client versus, me in as the accountant, right? They have apps. They can go see all the third-party apps that are connected to the file, right? And this is my test file, so I just got a lot of apps connected that I use or don't use anymore, right? But notice the left-hand panel, right? It's different when you're in as a client versus when you're in as an accountant. We don't have apps, okay? So it's good to see at a high level what third-party apps has Clay connected to the file, okay? So company setup is one. You just blow through that. And then you have banking activity, right? Not that this is the only place you can see it, but I like, because this one, as it's loading, does show how many transactions are unreconciled, how many transactions are unaccepted, meaning they're in the for review tab of a credit card or a checking account feed, like in the bank feed, right? Bank feeds, and you just, but they're not yet put in the register. And this always takes a while to load. Just like how many transactions are not reconciled. Also good info to have. And then, you'll see whether it's never reconciled or stuff reconciled from like 2016, right? So, this would be a prioritized file for the petty cash account. This is, I'm sure you guys would love to see this. Negative 54K, almost 460 transactions not yet reconciled. Well, you're probably talking to me about that stuff. So, good to know. Not just bank balance in QuickBooks and whether it's reconciled or not or when, but unaccepted as well as unreconciled. So I like those 2 columns a lot. Common issues as well. You're probably looking at this already and rolling your eyes. You don't want to see negative 35K in opening balance equity. Or there's 42 uncleared transactions and undeposited funds. Now that either means that I haven't made the deposit or I have done the deposit in the register, but I never linked the payment to the deposit or the deposit to the invoice as a received payment. So you don't want a bunch of stuff in undeposited funds either. And then there's negative asset liability accounts, uncategorized assets. I have 51 transactions in uncategorized expense. All these things are great for training opportunities that you'll see, or just to sit with me and work with me to resolve this. Hopefully your files don't have this kind of damage. But for instance, when you click on a lot of these, they bring you to the register. And clearly mine has to do with this ridiculous, I don't know what this was, foreign currency adjustment thing or inventory asset, why I have stuff in opening balance equity. Now, let's do a quick tangent there. I'm right-clicking and duplicating the tab just to have 2 windows open. Just so you see it. Most of you already know this trick, but I just want to make sure we're all aligned here. Opening balance equity. Quick tangent. It hits it in the same way it would in desktop. Your client, creates a new bank account. Sure, cash on hand. and they just say, oh, there's $9,000 in there, right? So this is going to debit the bank account, right? Think of the T-chart. It's going to debit the asset account. It's got to credit something. It's going to credit something else that would increase. That's going to be opening balance equity. That's like the default account we offset stuff to. This is your number one culprit right here for OBE, other than inventory stuff. And what do I mean by that? If you go to products and services list, what will happen is Woody will say, oh yeah, I forgot to add like this inventory part. Oh, whoops, I don't have it on. Forgive me. There we go. I must have turned it off for some reason. And he's just going to add an inventory item, right? So widget, whatever, and then the initial quantity. I have 100 of them. This is going to what? Think of the T-chart. Debit inventory asset, got to credit something. It's going to credit, not COGS, because COGS would not increase crediting. So it's going to do like an equity account. In this case, it's opening balance equity. So this is why you see stuff like that. Or they made an inventory adjustment. The other main culprit for opening balance equity is when they add new customers. Okay? I go in, I add a new customer, and I know this customer, whoever he is, particularly owes me, he has a balance, right? $8,000 because it's an open invoice. That's going to debit AR, and it's also going to offset. You get the idea. Same with vendors and everything. So this is why OBE happens, opening balance equity. But we don't really want it to happen at all, but so hopefully yours is zero. So these will bring you to the register. Now the uncategorized income and expense, that actually brings you to a report, which I would prefer. For all of them, they bring you to a detail report or a quick report on the particular account or whatever. But only these two bring to a report, the rest bring to a register. So it's still helpful information, right? Now, that's the overview tab. One other thing I wanted to show on overview is when you first have a client, first getting them and they've invited you as the accountant user, or maybe, this would be for like a new client to the firm that has an existing QBO. So they invited you as an accounting firm and manage users, right? You accepted the invite and added it to QBOA. You go in there and you're going to go to overview tab and you're going to click transaction volume because you want to know in the last year or something, 90 days, like how much transaction volume have they had? Now, I think we can all agree that I don't have a lot of transaction volume versus the amount of damage that's in the file, right? So you can make a lot of informed or whatever assumptions about me as your client, right? Probably some good training ops. But I like the transaction volume. You got 3 options there. So this is accountant view only. And remember business performance, pretty exciting stuff. I know this is for QuickBooks Online Advanced, and as the accountant, you have this. So this might inspire a meeting with me just to go over some of this stuff. And your client's probably going to ask you, well, how do I get this? You're in my file. Anyway, so I hope we have that too one day. Right now it just seems to be for those coming in from QBOA. All right. We are going to move on to this toolbox. Okay, and don't worry, I'll get back to the manage users thing if I kind of went fast in the accounting user to make sure we're there. When we get to the gear icon, in the client file, I just assume we're all up to speed on just the basic access points of QBO. It's the left-hand panel, of which all this is fairly obvious: project tracking, sales stuff, expense stuff, bank feeds, right, reporting, sales tax or payroll tax. If payroll's not turned on, it'll just be sales tax. Mileage tracking, the accountant can't view it yet. It's really for your client. And you can't really choose the account yet. There's no really accounting with mileage tracking right now. Right? It's just like estimated tax payments. But your client will like it because they can use it on the phone and stuff. Choose whether it's personal or business. So I hope we keep enhancing that. It's really brand new. And then, of course, accounting is your chart of accounts and reconcile, right? This My Accountant tab, it's only relevant if you were literally from QBOA, which Sean would have showed you in the last accountant best practice. If you went to that, he went into the work module of QuickBooks Online Accountant. He would have sent a request to a client to upload a document. So if you're actually doing that file share, that document back and forth from QBOA to QBO, then your client will use the My Accountant tab. If you're not doing that, then it's just irrelevant. They just won't go in there. Access point number 2 is the plus sign. This is where all the transactions are. And some are obvious, like customer-related transactions, vendor, but then you have like bank deposit, transfer, journal entry over here. I always mention it because for some reason we just never see it. There's this other column, okay? And then we'll get to this gear icon, manage users, account, and settings. But remember, this is memorized transactions. This is your items list, all lists, right? So left-hand panel, plus sign, gear icon. Eventually, you'll just figure all that out. You know, it's just 3 levels. And if you're not seeing something, maybe it's not turned on, so go in here, right? So I'll go into account settings and leave that for later. Now, the briefcase, though, that is something specific for you. Before we get to the main one, batch or classify, prep for taxes, and I do want to mention the voided deleted transaction report. I want to make sure we're aligning this kind of nice, silly type tool. It's like the old homepage, but it's still impactful for your company financial summary reports feature called Report Tools. And really, it's not because of this, right? We already know in the Overview tab, there's a better place to see that. But it's this. I can look at last month and accrual basis. And my company financial summary reports, so the main reports you're going to run in a file, any file, P&L, balance sheet, P&L detail, there's a few others that will inherit that date range setting. Now, it's not something that I can like publish out to all my client files. That would be sweet. But just in this file, in my one QBO file I'm in right now, when I go to the balance sheet or the P&L, it's going to inherit that report tools date range. So any company financial summary report, which are the main reports you're going to be concerned about anyway from an accountant or bookkeeping standpoint, really accountant standpoint, it opens to last month, accrual basis. Right? So I wanted to make sure you knew about the report tools here. And we'll come back to reporting and, you know, for customization, just a general rule like desktop, detail reports are way more customizable than summary reports. And I'll show you that. We'll do like a transaction detail by account report or something like that later on, and we'll add debit credit columns, so because they default to amount balance, right? So memorize the report, auto send, we'll look at all that stuff. But I just wanted to make sure that this report tool setting is helpful. You just go in there first and set your default date range for reports when they open. Batch or classify. So this is a tool that we took from a QuickBooks Accountant Edition. You know, or any enterprise will have this. It's just an accountant tool. And it allows me, when your client miscodes transactions, to correctly code them in a batch. It works best for account-based transactions, not so much item-based transactions. So accounts, or you can do item-based transactions or account-based transactions for class, right? So if someone all of a sudden wants to start class tracking, this would be helpful because it'll allow you to batch add classes to all these transactions in the file instead of having to do it one-to-one. Not for location, but for class. But it's mostly for account-based transactions. And if I go in and look at, what did I have? Dues and subscriptions maybe? Yeah, see, I got all the, I mean, and also, another reason to use it is because the type column, a lot of these columns can be sorted. So you might tell me, hey, Woody, in this one account, I want you to only use bills, right? And then if all of a sudden you start seeing journal entries or checks or expenses, you know I'm doing something wrong. So it's almost bird's eyeing the transaction activity within an account, almost like a list report would be. So that's one reason for being for this classify transaction tool. But the other one is that maybe these bills are to totally the wrong account, and you want to reclassify them to the appropriate account. This is entertainment or something. And then you want to do some class tracking, like I said. When I'm out of conferences, apply. It's going to move them all to the right account, as opposed to me going into each bill, changing the account, click and save and close. Are you sure you want to? So it's like 3 or 4 clicks to do that manually. This is batch. And you can look at balance sheet accounts too. So I can't change from the source account, but I could go in and look at security deposits. There's nothing in there. How about prepaids? Make sure it's only journal entries. I shouldn't see any bills, checks, or expenses in here. So it's that kind of stuff. I mean, I have friends using these things for real, and they tell me why this tool is so awesome, right? So there's that, right? So mostly I'm doing around P&L accounts, but there's balance sheet visibility as well. But you are recoding in a batch the proper account, okay, or by class. Account-based transactions for accounts, and then class, you can batch or classify or add classes to a bunch of transactions, even if they're item-based. So that's one tool. Important to know. And, you know, anything you do here will be represented on the audit log report. We'll get to that too. Another tool is helpful is speaking of audit log report, is the voided deleted transaction report, which is built off of the audit log report. There's a filter for things that have been voided and deleted. Now this always filters to, this always looks at this month, this current month. So Clay deleted this invoice and this invoice. And you can click view and figure out what happened. On September 12th, it was created, right? And who did it? And then at 15 minutes later, I added a location to it. So I was doing some location tracking. And for whatever reason, on October 4th, it was deleted. So you have that ability. It's this, if I go to the gear icon and go to audit log, you know, this is what it's built off of. So the audit log shows, you know, all the stuff I've been doing now, and then other people and what they're doing. You know, Leah's in here, and you can see people's names. Now, there's a couple things to mention on the audit log from an accountant's perspective. When you and your staff are in the file from QBOA, you will be able to see your staff's names. The client only sees the name of the firm for user, because they might not know who Leah is. Okay, but I have Leah going in to do payroll or whatever. So very helpful. If you do see system administrator, like I mentioned this yesterday, this is when there's a recurring transaction that was entered by, you know, automatically by QBO, or a bank feed, you know, auto rule will be system administrator. That's who that is. But mostly you're going to see people's names. So again, you can filter by user, you know, by time, and then you can by all events, or you could just show like time events. So who's logging in and out, who's signing in and out, I should say. Or like I said, transactions, and then this is where they're getting the voided deleted transactions. So quite a bit you can do with the audit log versus say the audit trail in desktop. Usually you got to send that to Excel to really get some of this visibility. So I like this report a lot. Let's also look at the only other tool is the prep for taxes. And then we'll go at some key settings, close date, and the user role usage limits, go back to reporting, hit chart of accounts, and then the automation. Then we'll go to the top of the hour. But remember that briefcase is a few key tools here. Now this prep for taxes, even if you're not doing taxes, like this is the integration point to our ProConnect Tax Online software, right? So if you are using PTO or our online tax software, ProConnect Tax Online, you can send the balances from QBO there. For those of you here today that are doing like ProSeries or Lacert or some other non-Intuit even tax software, you know, you can always go to the trial balance trial balance report, and export that to Excel, right? Most of these tax programs, ours and those that aren't ours, usually have a bridge to Excel. Like Lacert has a trial balance utility, for instance. Now, a few things and some new stuff we've added in here if you've ever had. This used to be called the trial balance tool. Now it's prep for taxes. I mean, separate from the report. There's a trial balance report already, and it's in simple starting up. I'm just talking about prep for taxes. Now, it still just looks at the year. So for me, this will be more viable when you can look at a month or a quarter. Because I do like several things about this. It's the balance sheet, then the P&L, right on top of each other. And what do you notice about this? They open in collapsed mode, which I think is pretty sweet. I wish a lot of our detail reports did the same. When I go into current assets, I can click on bank accounts, you know, and I can make an adjustment, which is just journal entry. But I could see 2018 versus 17, dollar change, any adjusting entries that were done, right? I can make an adjustment. Like I said, that's journal entry. That's the transaction type for this. Add a note, manage attachments, right? It's like a working trial balance center, if you will. So it opens in collapse mode, but it's nice to see that. Now, the lead sheets is beta, and this is just lead sheets, reference code, year, change, actions that you can do. I guess it's mostly just your codes and attachments, right? And then tax mapping we won't go into, but that's for the mapping to the appropriate fields on the tax return. I believe this QBO client file is an 1120S, so right, I'm going to choose the appropriate tax mapping from there. But again, if you're just reviewing and adjusting, this is what Prep for Taxes does. And I'm not seeing it in this file. Let me see if I can get into a different file, because the other thing that I like about this tool, even if you're not using it to make adjustments, is if you've gone in and started a review, it will show all the changes above balance sheet. I just don't have a file that has that. If you go in and start a review, you come back and it gives you all these blue links to link to all the transactions added since the last time you were in this window. But unfortunately, I've already accepted it all, into the working trial balance. Which brings up a good point. Working on here and doing stuff in here does impact the books, right? And even if you want to, well, they don't really have save for later or freeze the pane. It doesn't impact, the books. Someone's still able to enter stuff, right? It's just a working trial balance is really what it is. Okay, let's dive into settings. So those are the key tools I would consider under the briefcase. Report tools, batch classify, prep for taxes. Those are the main things. Now, I'm going to go to the gear icon and settings. A few other things to mention that are specific to accountants, like tax form, industry type, things like that. The close books, right? So if I try to edit or modify, or my client does, anything before 331 or 331 or before, they will get a warning and then allow the change, or I can force them to enter a password or know it. Now, any company admin can come in here and turn this feature off, right? So it's not a total fail-safe. But if it prompts something that I'm trying to avoid a check, let's say, and I have to put in a password, and I might not know it, and I might not know to come in here to turn it off in order to go void it. You don't want me voiding it because it'll impact things that you have done. And so then at least I can contact you and you can say, well, what are you trying to do? And one of my staff will rectify it, that check. Give me the check number. We'll figure it out later today, right? So this just helps prevent issues. And the closing date password is also in desktop. So it's in QBO as well, okay? Just remember, any company admin can come in and turn it off, if you will. This accounting method setting doesn't impact reports at all. It just impacts a couple tools. The prep for taxes, for one. So I usually leave it as accrual because, I always feel like QuickBooks Desktop and QBO, it's just inherently leans towards accrual anyway. You can always change to cash basis on a report, right? So those things are important. The type of tax form, right? Do you want account numbers or show them or not? There's that. And the other stuff we went over yesterday, we won't be looking at class tracking today at all. So those are the main settings that deal with, from an accountant standpoint. Now the Beyond the Basics webinar, and this is for Henry or anybody else that asked that question, if you weren't able to attend yesterday or the one that's on November 5th or whatever, I usually hold 2 of the Beyond the Basics a month. You can watch the recording. It was probably from a month or 2 ago, but it's same info, right? And that goes over all the sales and expense settings and, job costing, project tracking, stuff like that. So might be helpful. Manage users. Notice there is users, I'm in a plus file up to 5, and accounting firms. So when you add a client file from QBOA, you're already going to be in the accounting firm section, whichever staff did it, okay? and that just connects the file to QBOA, and you get the wholesale bill discount and all that stuff. So you don't need to go invite yourself again, right? You're already here, okay? But for new clients to the firm that were sent to you or word of mouth or whatever, right, that already have QBO, this is where you tell them to go invite you. One of you that's in the QBOA or you. I mean, I always like a more rigid process for client invite of accountants, so it's always a specific email address or something, but it might just be the person that they know at the firm. So this client works with two different firms, right? So and you're like, well, well, you already know the story of the team, right? So the team that you invite to QBOA, everybody that you check off to have access to this file will have access to it. They don't need to be here. Only one of you needs to be here. Right? When you accept the invite, it adds it to QBOA. You do not want them to invite you on this tab of Manage Users. For number one reason is it takes up a seat, an active seat. And if you're a company admin, you're not going to get that briefcase or any of these other tools, right? You're just going in as them. So you really want to be an accounting firm, okay? But don't worry about adding it if you've already created the sub from QBOA, because it's already done. It's just for new clients to the firm that you want to bring into your QBOA. So they go into accounting firms and invite you. Right? Now, let me dive into this advanced because I wanted to show you real quick why that's different from a user security standpoint. And we'll talk about usage limits, and then we'll go into quick bit on reporting, chart of accounts, how to merge, reconciliation, and we'll end with the automation and data entry. Sounds like a lot, but it's not really. Okay, manage users. Advanced, QuickBooks Online Advanced, and this would be for only some of your clients that require this. They have this usership called custom user, right? So Essentials and Plus, Simple Start doesn't even have this because Simple Start has one user plus two accountants. So there's no inviting other users to Simple Start. It's just one master admin. Right? Essentials has up to 3 plus up to 5. So they all have this standard user, right, which you can choose between expense or sales or whatever. Admin, which is a company admin, or master admin, of course, and then you have reports only as plus and advanced, or they might have time tracking user too. But this custom user one, there's a gap in the user roles of plus where if you have someone that is a salesperson, they're going to create invoices and sales receipts and receive payments, but they want to make deposits. Plus can't do that without making them an all user. But if they're an all user, they can see a P&L balance sheet and registers. So there's like that void there of, that's a conundrum for a lot of clients that just can't come to QBO because my sales staff, I need them to make deposits, but they can't see a balance sheet. So, I mean, I can prevent them from seeing payroll as an all user, but really it's about being able to make deposits as well as sales. So Advanced allows me to do that without seeing any company financial visibility or reporting at all or registers, right? And this person doesn't even, Abby doesn't even see like reports. She has very little to do as far as menu options when she logs into this file. So just wanted to make sure you knew that was available in Advanced. Yep. And just to make sure we're aligned here, I don't think we don't have to look at user management anymore. I think we've done enough, and just remember to have the client invite you. Now, one last thing on usage limits. There are limits now on 3 different lists. Whoops. Users, right? So I'm using 3 billable users of 5 in this file, so I can add 2 more, or I have to go up to Advanced. If I need 6 or more users, I need Advanced. I have 101 chart of accounts of a 250 limit. So if a Simple Start Essentials or a Plus client has more than 250 chart of accounts and they're going to keep it that way, they need to go up to Advanced. And then class and location, which is just a Plus subscription level feature anyway, if they need more than 40 classes and locations total, they need to go up to Advanced. Now I wanted to because this is considered by me, I consider this to be in the client file. This is an important thing to know. You might have a client that's on Premiere 2017 or something, and they have 300 chart of accounts. Not because of your wishes, because they came to you that way, right? You would not want, you're not going to have a lot of clients with 300. If you had your druthers, you're not having more than 250 accounts. But it just came that way, right? They already had desktop, and so they just jacked up their chart of accounts. But they really want to go to QBO, or they're a good fit for QBO, and you want to do the conversion, but you're like, oh yeah, well, there's no reason for them to go to advanced. It's only 3 people or 4 people. They're going to use class tracking, but very minimally or not at all. There's no reason to go up there, right? Plus is fine, and there's no reason to pay the extra money just for going to advanced over chart of accounts. I just want you to know that there is a loophole when you convert from desktop to QBO. Even if it has 300 chart of accounts, post-conversion, the ticker starts at 0 again. So these 101 accounts I've added, this file was created in June of 2010. I have way more than 250 accounts, but I converted from desktop. It literally retroactively went back and dropped my usage limit to 101. So you can convert that client without having them go to advanced. Just want to make sure that's there. Okay, I want to put that out there. Don't be afraid to bring someone to QBO just because they have 350 accounts. That's not going to count post-conversion. They're going to start at 0, even though they'll still have 350 in the chart of accounts. Fair enough? So they could be on Plus or Essentials. There. Okay, that's usage. All right, reporting. Let's go back. As I was mentioning, for reporting, let's go to the transaction detail by account. By the way, you can search here or you can search in this field, right? When you guys left click in the search field, it'll show the last 10 transactions added, edited, or modified in the file. Plus, it's like A to Z reports. You'll have all your customized reports. I'm sorry about this. I can't seem to get this password thing to go anywhere. Well, anyway, you can search here too. So I'm going to do transaction detail by account. If you don't know where it is, I mean, that reports page, as you know, is broken up into different buckets, Now, detail reports is a lot more filtering. We're looking at a transaction detail by account report. I can filter by account, right? Let me get a little smaller here. I know you guys can't see well, but the settings icon. How do I get rid of amount balance? Let's say we don't want to do location or class, memo description, I don't care. We'll do the split, that's fine. But instead of amount balance, I really want debit credit, right? So detail reports just have a lot of other columns that you can add and you can rearrange, right? Summary reports are mostly period compare. You step off and it's going to build my report this month to date, and this is what I have. When you have and then you filter by account, you can take it from here. You can group by other things. Detail reports can just do more. Once you're done and you're happy with the report that you want, and you've even renamed it, you might click in here and call this something totally different, okay? You want to save it. This literally memorizes the report. Let me make it a little bigger, right? And you call it what you want. Add it to a group or not. It's up to you. I'll show you why the grouping matters beyond just visual. And you can share it with everybody that has ability to see this report, which would be the all user or above, and anybody, of course, from QBOA, or firm only. This is just staff. Client wouldn't even see it. You save it. This is me memorizing a report in QBO. So you have this custom reports tab, right? On a reports page, you got standard reports, which are all the reports. Custom reports are management reports. So custom reports, right? And I have this group. The nice thing about adding stuff to a group, other than visually, just bucketing reports under a group for whatever reason, not that you have to, you don't even have to share it. But when you do add it to a group, I can edit the group and set an email schedule that every week on Thursday, this is going to go to, whoever doesn't have access to the file, but they still want to see it. Now, it's not encrypted. Important to know, but still. I could send it to the CEO or some other partner that doesn't really go into the file, and they see this report weekly. And it's not just detail reports. I just wanted you to see all the different column options and stuff and filtering. Could be you might just be doing a standard P&L or balance sheet or a balance sheet comparison or something. All right. When you drill down to that detail, you get rid of amount and balance and add debit credit. Okay? Because it's always going to be amount balance. So save the report when you drill down for next time and just run it from the My Custom Reports page. Right. As far as balance sheet and P&L, you're already doing more than I'm doing with it, but it's basically just period compare. Dollar, percent amount, percent of row, percent of column. P&L is very similar to that, right? Balance sheet by class, no. Balance sheet by location, yes. And of course, P&L, profit and loss, can do by class and location, job, all that stuff. So, okay. Auto send. Some ask about the bank rec discrepancy. Let's go to reconcile. Then we'll come back to chart of accounts and then data automation. This is the reconcile report. Even if you click to it from the reports page, it's an accountant section in the reports page, it's going to bring you here. The beginning balance is off by $187.05. We can help you fix it, right? So if there's an issue with like a change made to something already reconciled, and I'm going to go do, the last reconcile was 12/31/18. So a change made anything before that threw off the balance, it would impact my as of 9/30/19 if I'm doing like quarterly reconciles or something. You're probably doing monthly, but still, we can help you fix it, right? If there's an issue, it'll show you here. So you would click on it, and this is the reconciliation discrepancy report. The nice thing is that it allows me to do inline edits. So I could go and bring this back to 98.45, right? And then it'll fall off. Or a lot of times, they will force reconcile it in the register thinking it's reconciled, like in that cleared column, the check column, right? Same in desktop. They put a C or an R in here, something like that. So you can change that too, right here, right? Or it'll show things that were canceled and voided. Deleted, voided here. Those you can't do much other than just, go re-enter them. But this is the reconcile discrepancy report as we have it right now. The other thing that's important about reconciling is when you go to history by account in the upper right, this is where you'd go to undo. Your client cannot undo a rec. You all can, meaning coming in from QBOA. They just don't have the undo option in the drop-down, right? And I have an auto adjustment here or a change made. If I view the static report, it's going to show me that I have reconciliation change up here, and then I have, remember to hide additional info because it'll prevent any other data showing up beyond 12/31, right? So you have the static report of what's been reconciled all the way through the end of the statement date that was reconciled, right? You see nothing for this year. So that box does that, but it's really about this change report up top when they make changes. You'll see it on the discrepancy as well as right here and on the actual reconcile, this history by account, okay? The history by account is where you go undo stuff. Got it? Right here. Same thing's going to matter. Interest service charges will remain, and it'll undo. Okay? Okay. Chart of accounts. I'm going to filter this by, before that, one thing, this filter. If you want to know what accounts count towards the limit, right? This shows me all the accounts that account toward the limit. I got 101 that account towards the limit, right? That matched the usage limit there, but I think that's helpful to filter that. Let's look at all. All right, but I have way more than that. And again, because I converted from desktop, 10 years ago, so 9 years ago. So the chart of accounts that I had, though they're in here from desktop, still they don't account towards the usage limit prior to conversion. Okay. Now, I think I had this meals example, so I want to show a couple things here. Obviously, I don't need all of these. I got entertainment meals, I got meals and entertainment, meals local, right? So this one is a dupe, and you want to merge. Notice, chart of accounts in QBO has this phenomena called detail type. when you create an account, right, and it's required, you'd be like, well, what is that? I mean, we already know the detail. I even actually put that in the name, you know. I mean, that's just not a desktop thing. That's because when QBO was designed back in 2000, it was launched in like December 2001, right? It's like 18 years old, this product. We just never really invested into it until like 2012, started looking at it seriously. So detail type was, you know, this is just me with my business using QBO, and I don't know what type of expense account it is. I'm not working with an accountant. That's why it was designed that way. So for you, it might be more of a pebble in the shoe, but, right, you have a detail type. You just choose it. You name it what you want, put in the number, you're done, right? Don't enter an opening balance on the balance sheet accounts. Okay, we already went over opening balance equity. But when you're merging, like I want to bring this up into that because this one already has some accounts in it. I think so. Yeah. So there's this. If I go back, I should have had two tabs open. Sorry. There we go. Perfect. I remembered. So I want to merge this one into this one, right? But the detail types are different. So I have to change this to other miscellaneous services. Although I kind of like entertainment meals. But anyway, in order to merge it, I have to change it to other miscellaneous service cost. And then you have to name it exactly. Like this is going to be meals and entertainment. All right? Okay, when I hit save and close, it's going to say changing the type of detail of an account may affect your accounting and reporting. Nah, it won't. That's not, it doesn't affect anything. Sure you want to do this? Yes. And then it says the name's already being used. Would you like to merge it to? Yes, right? So it's going to roll up all those transactions into, you know, that one account. So now I have meals and entertainment. When we run the quick report on that, you know, they're all in here now appropriately, even historically. So I wanted to go over merging because that's a thing. It's the same with customers and vendors. It would come up. And the detail type phenomena, which really only impacts you if you're merging, if you're importing a chart of accounts from Excel, or creating an account. Converting from desktop, it won't come up, or really any other situation. But it is important to know that detail type is there. All right. Lastly, automation. We went a little over this yesterday. When you're creating rules, let me have some issues with the rules I'll have to go take care of. Let's see. And I wish there was a way to sort this alphabetically. There's still not yet. Let's see. Where is my Google? Right. So rules you're creating so that the bank feed will auto-categorize. So QBO will will choose the correct account, correct category or split based on the condition. So when Google advertising comes in, anything from Google, right, based on this condition, anything that has Google in the bank text or the description, which is usually the payee, QBO is going to go ahead and create an expense to this vendor for this category, this class and location in a memo. And I've chosen, not that you have to, it's an option, auto-categorize and auto-add. So that's going to not only categorize it, but when Google stuff comes in, it does not sit here in the For Review tab. It's not even in the Recognize section. It's already in the register. So it applies the rule and puts it in the register. And you can tell by going to the particular vendor. In this case, it's the Google vendor. There we go. If you look at any of these expense transactions, in the upper left, you'll see the breadcrumbs. It's blue links, right? Just look for those when you're looking for things, whether time material expenses linked to an invoice or an estimate to an invoice or whatever. Online banking matches, right? Automatically added with a rule. So that's how you know I have the auto rule on. And that's helpful because you might not want stuff automatically added. So you just choose the other bullet point. The other automation of data entry at this point is recurring transactions. And we'll finish with this. So you got the bank rule piece, the auto add. Unless you're using a third-party app like auto entry, there's literally a third-party app called auto entry which automates data entry. But the recurring transactions is a great way to have QBO automatically enter these types of transactions. The only three you can't do to make recurring is a paycheck bill payment against a bill or a receive payment against a customer invoice. but the rest is fair game to auto add. I mean, I know you're probably doing this with journal entries or bills or checks, utilities, rent, whatever. And just as I mentioned yesterday, and no need to go into it again much, but for invoicing, you can even, and sales receipts, you can automatically send them as emails once they're entered. But on invoices, you can include unbilled activity. Anywhere I tag this customer on a bill, check, expense, or delayed charge form, time entry, this invoice, when it's entered monthly and sent, will pick that up too. So there's a global setting for automatically creating invoices against unbilled activity, but this is how I control it to a specific customer or client. Now, I mention all this stuff because you're going to do this in the Your Books file. Once you move your desktop file over there, all this stuff you're going to do too. It's plus level. All right, so we'll go back to overview. I love that business performance thing. I had not really seen it yet. I heard about it, saw some mock-ups, but never really saw it. So I'm going to stop the recording.